We are here with the editor-in-chief and founder and co-owner of Transcendent Zero Press, Dustin Pickering, with his cat, Clyde. He is holding his second full-length collection that's published by Transcendent Zero Press, and it is entitled The Future of Poetry Is Now. He is here with us to answer a few questions about the book. Dustin, comparing this to your last book, The Daunting Ephemeral, could you give me some key differences between the two?
This was more stream of consciousness, in your face, revolutionary style poetry. It generally was like took leaps and bounds, intuitive leaps and bounds from this subject to that. And Daunting Ephemeral was sort of like almost theology in its subject matter. It was a very unified book. This is not so much unified as just separate short poems, not even really lyrical poems necessarily. They're just short poems. And they're not really trying to express an emotion or a thought or anything comprehensive. It's more like they're trying to spit in the face of reality. I compared this to being basically being like Gothic meets Beat Sensibilities, because it's kind of got a dark edge and a little bit of a mystique to it. It's speculative in some ways, but it's mostly kind of a spit in your face. And then there's the part that's kind of a love interest that I had when I was writing this book. That I was still deeply in love with a woman who I lost. Very, very difficult romance. And I wrote a poem to her called "I'm Gonna Love You" to AMC, because those were her initials.
Would you care to open up a little bit about this romance?
She was a very troubled young girl, and I was about 22 when I met her, and her best friend was killed by a drunk driver, and I could relate because my grandmother was killed by a drunk driver, and I was there for her, and I just was very comforting. She said when she kept coming and going through my life, and I saw her the second time I saw her, she said I saved her life because I was the only one who was there for her. All the guys that would come over, they didn't want to, they just wanted to sit and hang out or whatever, and you know what that means. But I was there for her, and she had a hard time during that period to kind of evolve emotionally from that trauma. And you know, I talked with her a lot about it, talked her through it, and was a good friend, and fell deeply in love with her, even though she was significantly younger than me, about 7 or so years. And then she got in an abusive relationship, and I helped her through that. And then I found out she was probably doing some serious drugs, and I didn't blame her for it because I knew her troubled history, and I knew how she had become introduced to those drugs. And I loved her very much, so I couldn't let go of her so easily, but she broke it off with me. And I knew her well enough to know that when she broke it off, she didn't mean necessarily permanently. She just meant kind of like, leave me alone. She had a borderline personality, I'm pretty sure of that. Either that or she was a total drugged up user. But I don't think with all the love I gave her, she wasn't going to give any back. So I think she had a borderline personality. She had the same relationship with everybody else, you know, that was in her life. But she was a beautiful young woman, and she joined the military. And I think she's cleaning up her life. I think she's married to another man now. I have a couple of poems in an anthology called the Muse for Women anthology that are about her, that were published. And I was very proud that those 3 poems were published because they're based basically on what I saw of her life, you know, because it was about domestic violence and violence against women.
Of course. Now, for this book, what exactly was your selection process like? I know you said I know you said.
Selection process. I actually composed a full notebook of poetry. I just decided to sit down one week and fill a notebook, and I didn't even think anything of what I was writing. I just wrote spontaneously. It's kind of like one long howl on a winter night, I think is what I say. And I didn't pick or choose, or I didn't even edit really. I just, as I was writing, I put in, you know, all my work, and then I basically sectioned it off. And I think what I'm going to do is release it in 3 books if there's enough space. But I wrote it the week of my birthday last year. and it took about a year for it to come out because of other projects. The cover here, this painting, is by a guy who goes by Mr. G. His name is Dwight Garland, and he's known as his artist name is Mr. G, and he has a site on the internet, www.geecreates.com. He has some excellent digital pictures, paintings, collages. But I thought this symbolized roughly what I was saying. Was he's got this woman, I think, kind of raising up to this symbol up here that I kind of can get the impression it's a fragment of DNA or something. To me, it just symbolizes a screaming at fate, or a kind of why me, and or maybe not even that, but like, why am I chosen to do what I'm doing? And I recently was looking through my horoscope information. I found that Capricorns tend to be very fatalistic, and that's a big character fault. But I am very fatalistic. So this is in part a screaming against fate. Like, I had no choice in the matter. So why did I get punished for doing this? It's just something inherent in my nature that I have that tendency of thought.
Mhm. Now, getting back to the theme, you said Gothic means beats sensibility. Um, how were you able to mesh the two together so well?
It came naturally because that I was reading a lot of the Jack Kerouac and stuff, as well as I was in dark moods. I was very moody and dark at the time, and I tried to combine a sense of jazz rhythm, a kind of that kind of stuff with jagged edge to the sentiment. And I think that beat and Gothic doesn't necessarily mean that they're opposed. I think just Gothic tends to be more dark and speculative, versus beatnik, which tends to be more experimental and more along the lines of kind of travel journey, life and confessional meets a kind of rebellion against the authorities, and especially when line with doing drugs and listening to jazz music, which at the time was the biggest act of rebellion you could see, you know. But I think there's a lot that the two have in common. There's a dark edge to the beatnik movement, and there's a speculative edge, and the two seem to mesh really well, just naturally. And that's just the way I happen to describe it, because that's the way I felt about it.
Perfect, perfect. There, yes.
Perfect.
Ja,
Name.
ja, ja, ja. Now, I was reading through the book, and there was one piece that struck me in particular. I believe it was called Leonard Cohen Will Never Die.
Yes.
Would you mind giving us some insight as far as that piece is concerned?
The poem itself was, I was laughing at the idea of artistic immortality. I was saying roughly, there's this kind of myth about the artist that he will never die, and then I basically say at the beginning, I'm just kidding, he will die, you know? So I'm like, kind of saying in a sense, is this really serious? Is this a part of a myth, or is this something serious that we should consider? That meaning that, is the artist really immortal? And I was just reading earlier today about the early artists, the cave dwellers who painted and stuff, and their art is still there, but we don't know who the hell they are. We don't know the guy's name, we don't know the whoever painted those things, and we don't even know why they painted them that way.
Well, that's because, like, in those days, especially with the cave dwellers and even the Egyptians, they didn't really consider it art. I mean, like, for the cave dwellers, that was their way of telling a story. And whereas
Right.
with the Egyptians, when they created such fine, whether it was sculptures or jewelry or anything along those lines, they just considered it their craft. That's why under each and every one of them it says artist unknown, because I mean they didn't consider it art. It wasn't until later on.
Art. It wasn't a form of.
It was to keep that person, whether it was the pharaoh or some royal blood, immortal.
Art in early civilization it seems like it's varied to me. It's part useful, and they actually say now that they would do paintings on the cave wall and let the light from the fire flicker, and they would form a form of cinema on the wall.
Yes, that is true.
And so they were entertaining themselves, really.
Yeah.
With maybe they were doing some kind of ritualistic thing. I mean, that's the thing. But my thing is if this civilization was washed asunder, will we remember Leonard Cohen in spite of his great, musicmanship and would his art survive? I mean, is there a sense of a real, true immortality from the artist?
Yes, actually, it's because their art will live on, and we will remember that artist even after their passing. In some way, they are immortal. It's because whether it's their words, their visual art, their songs, or any other sort of creation, any sort of extensions from the mind, it does become immortal, at least to a certain
Is
section of people.
immortality the strength of motion?
Well, I think so far it is. uh,
Right.
um,
Just the fact that an artistic creation can outlive its creator in a certain way, move people in a certain way, even long after the person is gone. And, some people have different preferences as to what they particularly care for. But if you look for somebody who enjoys movie stars, they still remember Cary Grant very well. I don't
That's right.
necessarily consider that my art because I don't know much about it. But there are a lot of people that are really really into various forms of art, and they know all of the names and they know all the people. Just like I know a lot about poetry, I can't find other people that are necessarily know as much. But they basically depending on what kind of thing you're into, the artist themselves is living to you, even if their body's long past.
Okay. Now, now the same question I asked you as far as Leonard Cohen will never die. Could you explain a little bit more about the piece known as Fertility?
I don't remember that piece. Let me find it real quick, and I will probably tell you considerable much more about it. Fertility, page 36. See, I have a hard time remembering in detail.
That's okay for me. I remember.
Well, I was comparing spirit to the earthy kind of thing here. Tear open the question like bags of fertilizer. The spirit is a questioning thing, and the fertilizer image is going back to earthliness. And I combine time in the next line. I combine, oh, laugh now, but tomorrow be gone. That's me saying roughly all time is past already. So go ahead and enjoy your life. Enjoy the moment, because by the time you're through enjoying it, it's gone.
Of course.
And there's a lot of love and war type images, and then I go at the end, each moment born again, like a fundamentalist. It's another a little bit of jostling with some of the stuff I'm exposed to. But the idea there is, there's an idea that Nietzsche had called the eternal recurrence, and I'm basically asking here if this is just a thought experiment, or is this possibly true. I think there's some scientific validity to it, but just because something is scientifically and theoretically valid doesn't necessarily mean it's true, and we don't really know the nature of our existence in totality. So I think that this is basically saying, fundamentalists, are they truly born again, or are they just changing their their outlook, or are they just changing a superficial aspect of their selves? And does each moment really change, or is all of life a continuity? Do people really, at heart, is their nature ever flexible? Does it? That's part of why I use a lot of these images that are both mystical and have motion to them, like butterfly. Butterfly, the wings of a butterfly are very fragile and flutter, And but I use a lot of this. This is a form of experimentation with the idea of poetry being both spiritual and earthy. Like they have that thought that poetry is a bridge between two worlds, which is
It is.
the earth world and the spirit world, which we don't even understand the spirit world, which is why poetry is so incomprehensible.
Poetry is a portal, actually.
It is, and it's a portal that most people have little interest in.
Well, we're gonna change that.
We're changing that slowly and surely, but my thing is, it's not necessarily meant to be a popular expression. It still opens that portal.
Not necessarily in the popular sense, but it definitely deserves more exposure, and whether the person wants to absorb that or not, that's completely up to them. Okay, well, just a couple more questions. One of them, and I'm going to ask you to read the 3 pieces in there that mean the most to you. But before I do that, one non-related book question. Without giving too much away, could you let the viewers in on Final Caesura, this project?
We have a project. Hopefully, what we're going to do is get these 3 different artists. One is a photographer as well as a painter, and get her book. Inside the book is going to be her art, complemented by 2 other poets who are revealing their natural poetry self. The 2 poets are Juliet Dean and Juliet Scarlett Dean and Elena Petrova. And all of the people that I've asked about this so far are interested in doing it, except I haven't heard back from Juliet, and she seems to be dodging me a little bit. But I think given time after the holidays, she'll give me a yes or a no, or something that'll let me in, because it looks like she hasn't seen my message on Facebook yet.
All right. Well,
that'll be a compliment. It'll be a dual chat book with visual art by Melody Past. She's very wonderful especially photography. I love what she does, and I carefully selected. I really thought hard on. I wanted to do something with Juliet, and I really put a lot of thought into what other artists would complement her sensibilities.
yeah.
And I went through my friends list on Facebook, and I'm like, would that work? Nah, maybe not. Would this work? Yeah, it seems like that would be a good option. I put a lot of thought into it, and hopefully it'll work a little bit.
Terrific. Now, Dustin, I'm going to let you read the 3 pieces in there that mean the most to you. Take it away.
One that I think means the most to me is obviously going to be I'm Gonna Love You to AMC.
This is one of my favorites.
I'm gonna love till the weeping willow ceases and the morning dove rests eternally. I'm gonna love you till the fresh roses flower and the trees whisper lightly. I'm gonna love you, I'm just gonna love you until the edge I reach. Nothing is gonna stop me. No cloud or rain will stop me. My heart is anxious to remember the moments we spent, but I had forgotten. Nothing is gonna stop me, but death and a mule will stop me. I climb the steep mountainside and search for your flowers, the petals you put in your hair. The fire is there still. With me, it always stays. Nothing will stop love but a train or a hiccup. No, this little fool will love you forever, till great divides are reunited. The ghosts come uninvited. I try to hold the feeling, but they take it and run. Nothing but falling, desperate and dragging love. I carry the passion of 1,000 days of solitude in my heart, spent in you. The spiderweb catches me in dreams. The schizophrenic breaks the light eternal, and we wait for answers. It's the end of time. And as far as other 2, I might as well read the Leonard Cohen poem you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Leonard Cohen will never die. I play. He will die. Not like the average man, though. No hotel, no drugs, no show. And the poetry goes on. But oh, Canada is sweetly singing now that his word steps into the soul's awakening. Oh, act now, Leonard, your voice from Seattle to the roosters of the deep south. Reptiles are warming up in the center of our world. Prophecy passes from the pedestal to the empty table. Lazarus is silent. The womb is dry. Leonard, you are dead.
Yeah, I gotta say, for that one, it almost sounds like uh one of mine. I totally saw myself in that one.
This is called fertility. It's another one previously mentioned. Butterfly, ghost, and laughter, some poetic fallow ground, where seeds of envy fall bright night goodbye. Tear open the question like the bags of fertilizer. Oh, laugh now, but tomorrow be gone. My moon sails across the room in a love-torn war whisper. I hate the silence. It is a wound grown on me, but I ride the storm throughout the lonely room. Oh, be my Valentine, and smoke the replications of dawn. None to repeat, none to afflict. Sentimental crusade, each moment born again, like a fundamentalist. Thank
Nice,
you.
definitely.
Buy this book. The future of poetry is now bones picking at death's howl.
Definitely.
This is a beautiful collection. I think it's a good complement to the Daunting Ephemeral. It's not entirely the same project, but it's a very unique specimen of poetry.
It definitely is. I enjoyed reading it, and I hope everybody else does too. Uh, just one last request. Would you mind plugging what's coming up on New Year's? Really quick.
We have a New Year's Eve Wednesday night poetry reading, 9:30 at Nocturne. Everyone's welcome to come. Anybody from all the way from if you're living in Maryland, I don't care. Come down here. Come to our reading. New Year's Eve. We're gonna do a poetry reading. Then afterwards, PW Covington's hotel room. We're having a big party where we'll be drinking and probably acting up and tearing up the hotel room so he can pay for it.
That's right. That's right. By Dustin Pickering's second full-length collection, The Future of Poetry Is Now, published by Transcendent Zero Press. Thank you very much. Poetry lives.